I'm doing a refret on this Epiphone Casino. It's like the John Lennon guitar. It's totally hollow. It's got some wood braces up through here, but it's totally hollow. And I didn't want to fret it, but I just kept playing it, and I kept trying to trade it. But I just really like tall frets. I don't like these little frets. So I've got some Dunlop 6,000 frets. They're 0.058 tall. They're like the biggest frets you can get. I got them from Atomic Guitars for a really reasonable price. They're Radius. Anyway, I'm going to show you how I take frets out. Everybody's got a way to take frets out. I'll show you how I take frets out. Let's see. I know the lighting's not too hot, but I'll pop out a couple frets. I heat them up, and the only reason I heat them is because glue melts when it's hot. So if there is glue, I don't know if these probably didn't come with glue because it's a factory job. Usually a lot of guitars that are factory made, there's no glue in them that I know of, but I like to be sure. So I'm just gonna get a little, can you see that? A little solder on there. It's called tinning. I want to heat it up a little bit. The first two came out real nice, just about nothing. And I got these. I don't know if you can you see that? I sanded them down so they're smooth. And I usually do it on the first, by the first string. Just take your time, and that's pretty much it. I mean, if you're mechanically inclined, if you can change a transmission, if you can build a shed, if you're good with your hands, you can fret a guitar, but there's certain things, there's certain absolute rules. If you're not good with tools, maybe you shouldn't do this. You got to have some kind of, you know, basic skills with hand tools. Because once you start putting the frets in, I mean, it comes down to the thousandths of an inch. It's coming out beautiful. So that's how I do it. I use solder. I tin it a little bit. If there's glue in there, usually you get a puff of smoke. Because they're just pressed in. I don't, you know, some companies, they wipe glue on the fretboard and then press them all in. It doesn't look like there's any glue here at all. Just want to take your time. And it has binding too. I've only refretted one other guitar with binding, a 6120 Gretsch. I modded the ever-loving heck out of that. And it was a lot of fun. It took me 30 hours to fret that Gretsch because I like that Gretsch. I was real careful with it. These are coming out great. So basically that's how you take the frets out. We'll just end right there. I don't want to put you to sleep. I hear the cricket. Do you hear him? They're also, some joker put a Duesenberg trem on here. He's got a couple extra holes. One you can see, which I'm going to fix that. But this Duesenberg tremolo, and look at this funky spring that's in there. Can you see the spring? It's a nightmare, but it works. This is the best working Bixby type tremolo I've had. I've had two Gretsches with them, and I put a Bixby on a Sheridan Epiphone. This one works the best. Anyway, the cricket says goodnight. Okay, the first thing I did was pull the frets out. The second thing is I've got my fret wire, and I've got it radiused to 12 inches. I've done a few refrets with Dunlop fret wire. It comes in a little package like this. The frets are so bent, it's a nightmare. So I got my fret wire radiused. It wasn't 12, but it was close, so I made it 12. It's gotta be the right radius one of the most important things to do if you're ever going to do your own fret job is you have to have that fret wire radius perfectly, and it has to go down into these slots nice. Now basically what I do is I use 5-minute epoxy sitting over there, and I glue them in. So the frets have to go down all the way, and then you clamp them in. That's how I do it. It works. I've done about a dozen fret jobs. I only do them for myself because it's a pain. But if you have that, if the slots are widened and you can just finger press in the fret all the way and use epoxy, that works really good. Okay, I'm going to show you what I'm using now. I got this Dremel, and I got this little Dremel tool in there, and I'm just widening the frets, the fret slots. Okay, hopefully you can see this. I know this isn't the greatest recorder. Basically, I just want those slots wide enough that I can push that fret in finger tight. So that's basically the step that I'm doing now, widening the fret slots because I've got the fret wire all radiused. Alright. Okay, at this state, I'm just making sure the slots are wide enough and deep enough. I have this little contraption I made. It's out of the fret wire. It's got a 12-inch radius. You can see how it does the ends for the binding. You just put that in there. Make sure it fits good. So I'm just going through and I'm marking them all too. 22nd, 21. And I've got all my frets cut to the width a little bit wider than the fretboard. And as you can see, the tangs are nipped off with the nipper. Don't need that, but it does save some time. So it's very important the frets fit in perfectly flush. If they don't, your fret job's gonna suck. Alright, we started clamping the frets down. I've made my own, I've used these over the years, my own radius blocks. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. It's pretty tight. You can see I've been mixing the 5-minute epoxy. And then you pull it off, and then I'm going to pull back the tape. It's kind of hard with one hand. And then I'll work the glue out on the edge. Maybe I can show you a little bit of this. Come on, tape. Just carefully work it out. That's pretty clean. That one's pretty clean. But a lot of times you have to work that out. So I'm just going to keep fretting it. It's taking a long time. Just getting that radius the same is so important. And then there'll be a lot of doing the ends. So there's a lot more work to done. A lot more work to be done. It's taking forever, man. It's taking forever. I did a Gretsch that I had, and it took me 35 hours to fret it. That was a lot of time. In a Strat, you could do it in easily half that time. Anyway, beauty. Alright, I just put the last 3 frets in. These are my homemade radius blocks, because I'm a homie and I make radius blocks. That's about 8 pieces of tape on there. And after, if they don't line up, I put new tape on, because you don't want, you know, the line. You want the lines to be. You want the tape to be fresh. You get a nice even. You can see it's nice and even all the way. All right, now most of these I put in. I use this, but I had to use the bigger one because look at the way this guitar is propped. I got a big long piece of oak. I got a novel, and I got that's like that gooey rubbery thing that you clean your sandpaper with from your belt sander, just so I could clamp on, get something to clamp those last few frets. So I don't have a bunch of fancy tools, but You know, all those fancy tools are awesome. Don't get me wrong, they're great, but you don't need them. If you have a little bit of common sense, you can do a lot. The biggest thing about a fret job is getting the frets all the way down. If the frets aren't flush with the fretboard, then you're pretty much screwed. Everybody's played a guitar, and you go to bend a string, and it frets out, and you look, and there's a gap, and the fret's not down all the way. So here's a little thing I made. You got your 43s, which is too low for me. 55s, I like those. 50, that's about a Les Paul. Gibsons are usually about 50 high when they are brand new, maybe 51. And I've got 58s in here, Dunlop 6000, because I really like those big frets. I like maximum mass. They just are funner to bend on. I really enjoy those big frets. So now I got to pull all this stuff off, and I've got to deal with these fret ends. That's the first thing I'm going to do, is deal with the fret ends, get that all done, then we can start thinking about dressing it. So that's it. Alright, I've got this side done and beveled a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. This camera's not so hot. And I'm starting this side. Be careful you don't scratch your guitar up. I scratched it a little bit up on there, but that's okay. It's got a couple marks on it, you know. So, I mean, if it was a Gibson or something, I would really be careful. It's got a couple extra holes in it, you know. So it's a player. This guitar's a player. So now I'm going to start. See, that works perfect for not scratching up the... And then when I'm done, not with this file, but I'll be going like this. You probably know that. I'll be rounding off this edge. I'll use a different file. This one's just sitting here. So I'm going to keep filing. That's it for this. It's the John Lennon guitar. Alright, the frets are all in. And I'm just doing the ends. I've got a file here that's flat. And it's rounded. And I'm just doing the edges right by the board here. Pretty boring stuff, but that's pretty much it. Marco Simoncelli, rest in peace, brother. That was awful. Alright, I've got the neck all taped up. I got the edges all done real nice. I've got it as straight as I can with this Stu Mac straight edge, and using some feeler gauges. And now I'm going to use this file and go over them. I marked them all with the marker so you can see they're black on the top. The marker could be a little better. And then I'll go over them with 220, 320, 406, 8000, 15, 2000. And I'll use my Dremel tool and polish them, and they'll be awesome. So I'm going to go back and forth with this. I'm not going to do it while I'm holding this camera. So that's basically the next step. Ciao! Alright, I've taken my file, I've gone down this. Then I went down it with 220, 320, 406, 8000, 15. I didn't have 2000. And I used this. I have two of these. This is a cassette from a cassette tape, but it doesn't have any ridge on it. It's flat. I got a couple of these. I've used them for years. I just put the, because you can get a little bit of a radius on it if you want to bend it. I don't know if you can see that. It bends. That works fine. It's flat. It's flat enough. I mean, it's great having a ton of tools, but I can do a pretty nice fret job with no tools. The only real tools I had was this straight edge from Stu Mac and the fret end nipper, which was nice to have. So now I'm going to polish these frets with my Dremel tool. And I got a little wheel, but you want to be careful. You don't want to polish it, get it too hot. You don't want to melt the glue that's holding the fret in. I'll be using this. Oh, where'd it go? I'll be using this. So you just want to be careful, especially if you have maple underneath here. You can burn it. You can burn the clear in it. So you just got to be careful. You don't want to get it too hot, and that'll make it really smooth. So that's what I'm going to do now. I just had my pizza and hot sauce, and I'm going to drink some more of my cold coffee, which is right here in my Star Trek cup. I had my pizza and hot sauce, so I'm ready to keep going here. I want to get this done, and I'll button up the Duesenberg Bixby, and I got to make a nut. I hate that. This is why I don't like doing this. It takes so darn long. That's why people charge you $300-400 for this. It takes a long time. All right, that's it. All right, the fret job is done. And it plays so nice. I just really love to have a little bit of meat under my fingers. I did have a problem with the bone nut, which I don't want to talk about. It really aggravated me. So I got the original one in with a piece of a card underneath it. A slice of a card for now. So I got to get another bone nut. But I'm really happy with the fret job. It came out really good. It just feels so good having some big frets. I don't know how people can play on little teeny frets. All right, well this is like my setup amp. So we'll play a little victory song. Really low on the third string, it's dragging. Miss this thing. I really missed this guitar while it was apart. I wanted to get it together really bad. It really needs to be, get the nut on there and clean it up. I'm gonna hopefully wear this thing out. I've had a couple of Gretches, but I don't know. I like this guitar better. I like you can actually get up a little bit. On the Gretches you couldn't. You could get up to you could play the E pentatonic scale, but anything other was a total, you had to reach around really bad. But this, at least you can still get up pretty high. That's one thing I really like about this. And I like the fact that it's hollow. And the feedback's pretty easy at lower levels. It's just really, there's just something about it that's really cool. I wouldn't want to play it really heavy distorted rock and a really loud band with this, but anything other than that, I'm really happy with the way this fret job turned out. It feels absolutely perfect. You could tell right away as soon as I started playing it. Anyway, that's my story.